Yo, what's going on, guys? Jellybeans here, and today I'm going to be doing a guide on Cataclysm Hunter PvP for Season 1, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions after the guide, feel free to go to twitch.tv/jellybeans. I have a bunch of chat commands where you can get more answers to things if you need that are written out, or you can just simply ask me questions in the stream. And let's go. In terms of PvP talents, I think this is pretty baseline. You could change some things around. I would say maybe drop these 2 points into survival tactics if you want to go into more damage. But overall, this is like pretty standard. Rapid killing is pretty useless. You have to get a kill to use it. In arena is usually when you get a kill, you've already won the game. This is only 1 point, and it's just to go down in the tree more. I would say bombardment's more of a PvE talent. The resistance is futile. Kill command doesn't really do that much damage. So even though it gives you a free proc, it's not really worth it. Like, you don't really get much value from it. Improved serpent sting. Don't really serpent sting too much in PvP. If you're respecting to this, maybe you would a little more, but overall, it's not too much of a damage increase. It's also dispellable by most comps, since most comps will have a shaman or a paladin. You would put 2 points in here to go down. You can take points out of survival tactics, and potentially put it into one with nature, which is just more damage when you have aspect the hawk up, and more focus when you have fox up. In terms of glyphs, I personally went with kill shot, which gives you a second kill shot if the target doesn't die when you use it. Chimera shot, which is just 1 second less cooldown than Chimera shot, which is your main damage dump, basically. Arcane shot, which is more damage for arcane shot, your secondary dump. Disengage, which is a 5 second shorter cooldown on disengage. Trap launcher, which is 10 less focus on trap launcher. And in my opinion, those 5 are the necessities that you'll need. And then this is interchangeable. So you can go with this Raptor Strike glyph, which is very good. It gives you 20% damage reduction for 5 seconds. So you can think of that as like 20% resilience, right? Or you could switch that for Master's Call, which is also very good. It'll extend your 4 second Master's Call and cause it to be 8 seconds. This is really good when you're trying to kite, but I'll go into more detail on that in a more in-depth video. There's Feign Death, which is 5 second less cooldown. I highly recommend this. Revive Pet, not very useful, but it can be. It basically makes it to where you don't suffer pushback when you're being attacked when you're resing your pet. Very long cast, so if your pet dies, it's a low chance you're going to get it back anyway. And Scared Beast, which reduces pushback when you're casting Scared Beast, which is also very useful. For stat priority, you want to go... Agility, of course, is your best stat. But after Agility, when you get to secondary stats, it will be Crit, Haste, and then Mastery. Mastery being your worst stat. So in terms of gearing, I used Fior's BiS list as a baseline. Twitch.tv/FiorBlade, by the way, if you want to go to his stream. Multi-rank 1 hunter player, very knowledgeable, educational stream. In terms of gearing, this is basically the baseline, mostly PvP gear. The one thing you can change if you wanted to, you could opt out of the proc trinket right here, and you can go for slightly more damage from the PvE trinket. I believe it's from Bastion of Twilight. It's called the Essence of the Cyclone. So that's a pretty good trinket you could use. But overall, I would say this is pretty much the correct list for Season 1 at least, or Season 9, the first season. Full PvP gear. Hunters are generally the target, so you want to have a lot of resilience, because you will be the target in most games. The only thing I would say is... So he gems, in his red gems, he gems agility. In his meta gem, he goes for the agility and crit effect gem, which is really good. I would say that you could change the yellow gems if you want to. So he goes agility, resilience, and that's like for more damage, and so you get the set bonus. If you really wanted to, you could put in a full resilience gem, and that comes down to like what you're fighting and who their target choice is, basically, just to be a little tankier. It's not going to make a world of a difference, but I mean, it might win you a couple games here and there. I also recommend changing the bow enchant. I wouldn't use the Flintlock's Woodchucker, which gives agility. I believe the Gnomish X-Ray gives more damage overall. It's the attack power enchant, so I would change that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. In terms of racials, the only racial that really gives you a large advantage is human, because they have the racial everyman for himself. That allows you to wear a second trinket instead of using the PvP trinket. That will give you a damage buff. So you can use like a heroic trinket, you can use a trinket from the raid, you can use a second PvP trinket, and that'll give you more damage during your goes and also a little bit more survivability, which is very helpful. Night Elf has its advantages with Shadow Meld. Dwarf too with Stone Form against maybe Ferals, but overall human is the one racial that you'll notice a large difference in gameplay with. In terms of professions, personally I went with tailoring and engineering. I went engineering because I already had it leveled from Wrath of the Lich King, and it can be quite pricey to level a new profession from scratch. But also, at the beginning of the season, engineering offers two things. It offers Synapse Springs, which is this glove enchant that increases your main stat by 480. It's only on a minute cooldown, so that's pretty good to rotate with an on-use trinket and constantly have damage rolling in your goes. In the very beginning of the season, you can get an engineering helm, which I have here, and you get its own individual engineering gems, which gives 208 of an off stat. So in resilience and crit, in my opinion, the highest value gems you could get, but also it's epic. So early in the season, you're in full blues and full honor gear, and I would say this helmet is actually currently BiS. So it's really up to you in terms of engineering, but for tailoring, you get this cloak enchant. It is a 1000 attack power proc, very powerful, probably the best profession you could go. If you were to not go engineering, I would highly recommend going blacksmithing or jewel crafting, so you can get extra main stat over engineering, but you definitely want to be tailoring. So in terms of pets, now that the nerf is put in, where you can't have multiple of the same pet to use the same cooldown. So like for example, before, if you were to swap from a monkey to another monkey, you would reset the cooldown of your Roar of Sack, your Bad Manner, whatever pet cooldowns you had, and you'd be able to spam it. So that's nerfed. So to counteract that, I have 5 different pets now that I swap through and rotate through depending on the situation or the comp I'm fighting. The most needed pet, in my opinion, the mandatory pet, is Monkey. Monkey has a skill called Bad Manner. It blinds a target for 4 seconds. It does break the damage, but it only has a 1 minute cooldown, a 0.5 second cast. Another thing I want to mention about the Monkey is that the Monkey is of the Cunning tree. So Cunning pets basically have different spells from like Ferocity or Tenacity pets. Cunning pets have Roar of Sacrifice, which causes the target you use it on to not be able to be struck by a critical strike. It has a trinket, its own individual trinket that gets it out of crowd control, which is very useful. It has focus regeneration, also very useful. And generally, Cunning pets are also pretty tanky too, so that's very good for PvP. The second pet I opt in for is a spider, which is also of the Cunning tree, and it has Web. So Web roots the target for 5 seconds on a 40-second cooldown with a 30-yard range. The third pet I have, which is also of the Cunning tree, is the Spore Bat. The Spore Bat, also of the Cunning tree, has Spore Cloud, which is an AoE mind-numbing poison, basically. It reduces the casting speed of everyone that's in the cloud by 30%. Has a 6-yard range, 8-second cooldown. For my fourth pet, I use a Bird of Prey. The Bird of Prey has a spell called Snatch, which is a 1 minute cooldown, and it disarms the target for 10 seconds. For the fourth pet, you could also change which pet you're using depending on what you're fighting. So the disarm is really only useful into like melee classes or other hunters. But if you're fighting like a double caster comp, you could also change the Bird of Prey for a Nether Ray. The Nether Ray is also of the Cunning tree and has a spell called Nether Shock, which basically acts as an interrupt on a 40-second cooldown, 20-second yard range for 2 seconds. And finally, the fifth pet is your quote-unquote buff pet. This pet you must have, either a cat or a wolf. It provides a buff that you're going to use in the starting room of games in order to buff your team, and cat gives this buff, which is basically Battle Shout, 549 strength and agility. Or you can switch to a wolf, just like the cat pet. It brings a buff that lasts for a minute and gives you 5% crit. So in terms of rotation, PvP differs slightly from PvE. You're not always going to be doing the perfect rotation the entire time, right? It's going to depend on the situation. But generally speaking, you want to have your cooldowns popped when you're doing the most damage you could do. There's your rapid fire, there's your on-use trinket, right? And you want to typically not use Serpent Sting, unless it's going to have full uptime in a very long game. You want to Chimera, Arcane Shot, and don't Arcane Shot until you have no focus, unless you're trying to do as much damage in that specific scenario. You want to like weave, so when you Chimera, it'll bring you down to almost half focus, right? You want to weave in steady shots with that too. Make sure you don't drop too low in focus, because as soon as your Chimera is back up, you want to be able to do that again instantaneously almost every single time. You don't want there to be a gap, a very long gap especially, of you just not using Chimera Shot. So you would Chimera, let's say you Arcane once, and then you could start to steady, and maybe steady twice in a row just so you get the haste buff, improve steady shot, right? And basically that's it. It's not very complex. The complex part of your rotation comes down to managing your focus while you're doing a bunch of other things. So if you were going to CC, that would be a great time for your focus to start pulling back up. You're going to go get a scatter trap, or you need to peel, right? So then at that point, you need to watch your focus. Make sure you're not dipping too low. You know, it's very easy to like have your cooldowns popped and want to use all of your focus after your Chimera shot in the arcane shot, but you have to be a little careful not to go too low, because as soon as your Chimera's back up, you're going to want to do that again. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you all for stopping by. Thank you for watching this marksman guide. If you need any more help, if you have any questions, go to twitch.tv/jellybeans. Like I said, you can ask me while I'm streaming any questions you have. I'm going to be doing more advanced guides also for any subscribers in my chat. Basically, it's going to be guides on positioning, matchups, hard situations for hunters, and much more that I'm going to be coming up with, like good keybinds, why I use specific macros and when to use them and whatnot. And yeah, that's going to be it for now. So if you're subscribed to my Twitch, when I come out with these guides, it'll only be available for my subscribers, so please subscribe. And subscribe to my YouTube. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Take it easy, and peace.